while your day is winding down. They're just getting started. This is South Coast Tonight with Chris McCarthy and Marcus Farrow. They've got you covered on all the news of the day, from local issues to politics on both sides of the aisle. This is the place where the movers and shakers come to be heard, to listen, and where they're held accountable. This is South Coast Tonight on WBSM.
Welcome back to South Coast Tonight. I'm Marcus. 508-996-0500 is how you can get in the program. Let's go back to the phones. Good evening.
So, Marcus, let's go back to it. So I liken the school system or any public government to a business. And when you talk about it, and be their personal views of, special needs. So the complexity of a school committee and what diversity your guest has with special needs, when you roll all that up to what the school committee needs in hiring a superintendent, and I know where this superintendent comes from, East Boston, from Brockton, East Boston. It has to do with the relationship that they have with the purse strings associated with it. So if you went to, say, New Bedford, and if we were to look at the most successful school committeemen like Jack DeBriga and Dr. Paul Walsh, and then you looked at their superintendents like Charlie Nanopoulos and people like that, it had to do with the cohesiveness that they had with the ex officio, or by statute, the chairman, which is the mayor and or the select board, on how they can get what they perceive as what the school committee needs for funding. Funding is the key to this. So in Dartmouth, they're very fortunate to have John Nunes, who is a CFO of Fall River.
He's a feast guy. John Nunes is a feast guy. Uh-oh.
A feast guy, Madeira guy.
Yeah.
He is the band club guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For the marching band. I think they've been to the White House several times. He also was the chief financial officer in your town of Fairhaven.
He was, yeah. He told me some stories.
So very connected and very fortunate for your guests to have John Nunes, so they can go to somebody like Stan Mickelson and the Board of Select people who control the money to satisfy what their needs are. And it's, if you look at it like Pam Kiesler in Fairhaven with her relationship with Charlie Murray and the people there, that, she's a director of PACE. She knows what to ask for. She knows when to pick her battles and fights. And just like Bruce Oliveira, he wants to promote someone internally for New Bedford. So the purse strings are very, very, nothing different than what I'm saying about a business. Look at, you had Michael Rock. That's the radio station person.
Yeah, from 107, Michael Rock. Yeah.
Yeah, Michael Rock. Is he a boss? Or?
He is my boss. Yeah, he's the content. He said he's the director of content, and that's he runs he literally runs the shows. He controls the purse strings, correct? Well, it's two guys.
Okay. So having said that,
he's one of the two guys.
Right. So right now we would agree that he's in bed sleeping while. And
yeah, he's going to get up earlier than we do.
But it's business, right? So when Chris McCarthy, when he went to the Conservation Commission meeting, Chris McCarthy with a water park, he said to me, and Chris McCarthy won an award, did he not, for journalism on the water park?
Yeah, he got an award, I believe, from corporate, from the Town Square Media. Yeah.
Okay, so what Chris McCarthy said to me, I'll never forget this. He goes, we went to a meeting at night. Chris McCarthy said, I never go to meetings, but sometimes it's required to go to city council meetings, to go to Concom meetings, do what Michael Rock did, to cover what's going on at night and then bring it to you. And by the way, you guys have set the stage for radio for people like myself. You know, I guess we're baby boomers or whatever, all the way down to what you do with the articles that you write, all the way down to Gen Z, and making the success that you guys have as a business to cover from A to Z. The guys that listen to radio, don't read the paper, that doesn't cover anything, all the way down to what you do in your articles that you write. So it's a business from top down, and that the money goes to where the money will get the best return. It's no different than the school committee. It's no different than what the students need, like, you know, your mom, Isaiah, what this lady's talking about. It has to be satisfied and it has to be discussed openly as a business, because the most successful examples of a school committee, like in New Bedford, are the Bruce Oliveras, the Jack Rodriguez, the Dr. Paul Walshes, and those superintendents that they put in, being cohesive with the purse strings of city council and the mayors to get the students what they need. And the success is unbelievable. Let me just tell you one last thing. I was talking to Pat Mabriga, your friend Pat.
Yeah, I know Pat.
From Maritime.
Yeah,
and
fellow Spartan.
Success can be measured on different levels. So C-Lab here in New Bedford, it only goes up to, what, 9th grade?
Yeah.
So C-Lab, you know a lot of the people, Jimmy, Armin, Jack, Lenny, those guys went to C-Lab here in New Bedford. But then they went on to, say, Bishop Stang or whatever. And then the success of those, that microcosm of C-Lab in New Bedford, they became, one of them is like huge with Noble Drilling internationally, isn't he?
Yeah.
Came out of C-Lab in New Bedford.
Right.
Look at the success that can come out of let's not just judge our students from graduating New Bedford High, but I think it's, what, 9th grade, Marcus?
I think. I'm not sure. I wasn't in
C-Lab.
Yeah.
Look at the success stories that can be told out of the C-Lab attendees that only were there for a couple of short months.
Right.
One guy heads Noble Drilling. A couple other guys are trading oil in Houston. One's a detective. The success is unbelievable, which can be measured by the school committee, by the mayor, by the select board of the communities of which they are really fighting for money for. And it's great stories to tell. But you get a lot of good stories to tell. And Marcus, I'm so glad that you're able to, through Michael Rock and whomever, to do the coverage of city council and then report it back to the old people like myself that just listen to radio. We're glad we have you.
We appreciate that, Barry. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marcus.
You know, actually, yeah, this is, I mean, listen, I don't want to, I want to pat myself on the back, but it is, you look at other media markets and look at other radio stations and other media markets, there is nobody else doing this type of coverage. There really isn't. And it's, when I say, you know, a lot of people say unique, and like unique means one, right? Unique. This is unique. This coverage is unique. The content that the local content that we're able to provide, to the scope and scale that we're able to provide it, is unique. So I think we've done everything we can to make our media time available to members of the council, to local electeds in the South Coast. That's why I was having these school committee candidates on to talk about their their platform, their campaign for their campaigns, because those are the things that matter, and we have the time and space because of the local coverage we're able to provide to the scope and scale that we're able to provide it. So grateful to Michael Rock, actually, and Mark Stokowski, our station heads. It's their vision, actually, and Tim Weisberg as well. It's their vision and their support that allows for it to happen. I mean, it was a conversation with Tim. You know, I walked in to do the roundtable one day. I walked in to do to hop on Tim's show when I was doing the Saturdays, and Tim's like, "Can I talk to you after the show?" I'm like, "Oh God, oh no, this isn't good." You know, well, you know what? What's he want to talk to me about? I'm like, "Is it bad?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's bad because I'm going to ask you to work nights." I'm like, "Oh man!" And from that conversation with Tim, you know, we from that conversation with Tim, then a conversation with Michael and Mark, it just took off. It was very seamless. It was very supportive. It wasn't, you know, well, we got to, you know, it was how can we get this done, basically, is the way that this was going. Our conversations in the conference room with Tim and Mark and Michael, our conversations, you know, the leadership team here, right? So our conversations with Tim and Mark and Michael were, how can we get this done? How can we do this? Wasn't, well, you know, I don't know, we're taking a big chance here. They're like, no, this is going to be great. You know, this is going to be really good. This is going to be good for us. It's going to be good for the South Coast. It's going to be good for everybody. How can we do it? How can we do it? And it was pretty smooth sailing. The conversation from the point that I was asked to do this to the time that the show started, a month maybe. It didn't take very long. Very supportive. You know, like I said, Michael, Mark, and Tim, very supportive, great vision, and that's what you need to get stuff like this done. So I'm appreciative of it too, because you know I get to come here every night and talk to everybody, and it's time and space that isn't available often. So it's time and space for a lot of people that don't normally get to come to come on with us. So really happy about it. Really happy about this opportunity and grateful for it. 508-996-0500 is how you can get in the program. We'll also take your messages on the WBSM app chat. So what we've been talking about is the school committee. We talked about the school committee candidates as well, besides the meeting tonight on the city council. And what we were talking about is what we were talking about with Brian Monroe, actually, the vice chair of the school committee, was that Prop 2.5 override in Fairhaven. Now, Proposition 2.5, you all know, is a cap on municipal taxes. Each city and town in the Commonwealth cannot raise taxes, the total levy limit, so cannot raise the total municipal taxes more than 2.5% annually. This was implemented by a ballot referendum in 1980, and each town, if they want to override Prop 2.5, they have to do it by ballot referendum. So you have to put it to a vote to the people. People have to vote because you're asking them whether or not they want to raise the cap on this tax. People have done it. Some people have done it. Some people haven't. Right? And there's two types of Prop 2.5 overrides. One's just as Chris said, a dead override. Just that's it. You override. That's it. Forever and a day, right? And then there's one that's for the life of a project, which would be like building a school, building a building, something like that. There's Prop 2.5 overrides for that. There is a proposal in Fairhaven for an override of Prop 2.5. Now, there's a story you can check out on WBSM.com. I'd like you to check it out, actually. And I've talked about this a little bit. Tim's talked about this. Going to check out our articles really helps. It helps the program. Our articles do well. Our digital content does really well, as Michael was explaining. But the better it does, the easier it is for us to make this content. And so it helps this show a great deal whenever you can go to WBSM.com and check out my stories and everybody else's. But this is my show, so I'm going to promote my stories. So check out the most recent article. It came out probably about an hour before we went live on the air today. It is about the Fairhaven, the Prop 2.5 conversation in Fairhaven with respect to the fire department. So the fire department has Fairhaven Fire Union came out with a letter this morning, and they have accused the town, quote unquote, our elected leaders, which we can only assume is the select board. And listen, I'm going to sympathize with the select board a little bit in this particular circumstance, because I reach out to all of them. I don't want to have a conversation or have an article like this without reaching out to them. They're not really able to talk about much because there's an open contract, right? And there are probably some more they could say, but they're not able to speak like too much on the record about union negotiations. Those are inherently legally closed-door conversations that the public is not involved in. It's between the union and the employer, which is the town. So they can't talk about it. The employer cannot talk about it publicly, which is the town of Fairhaven. So there's a statement from them. They're saying, we want to obviously work to make a safe fire department with everybody. But here's what the Fairhaven Fire Union has said. Now, we've had Kevin Gonzalez on. He's the president of the Fairhaven Fire Union. I've known Kevin a long time. He's a great guy. And so went to school together just down the street over here, actually, Wood School. It looked different back then. It was the old 90s Wood School, not whatever this is over here. It's probably a lot better, but it's not the one I remember. We talked to Kevin a couple weeks ago about the staffing levels in Fairhaven at the Fairhaven Fire Department, and what they said, how dire they are, right? They talked about a fire on Main Street where you had one firefighter per apparatus, right? So that's those fire. You've seen a fire truck, right? You've all seen a fire truck and how big they are. And there's a lot of things that have to be done on a fire truck or an apparatus. I'm going to say fire truck. It feels like a easier thing to say and probably a more understandable term. But there's things to do on these trucks that require a person to do them. Multiple tasks that each require a person to do them. So they typically say 4 is an optimal level of staffing on the minimum level of staffing is 4. Many do it with 3. Many are able to do it with 3, right? Many departments. But Fairhaven was so critically low staffed that they had one person per fire truck showing up to a fire for the initial attack. And then they had to have New Bedford Fire Department help them out. Mattapoisett send a truck to cover Fairhaven in case something else happened. And Acushnet sent an ambulance after a police officer was injured by falling glass. So it was quite the scene. They sounded the alarm on the staffing levels. We wrote a story. We had Kevin on to talk about it. Right now, the current situation, as the union has defined it, is that they currently have 6 firefighters per shift. One of the things they want to do, one of the problems is that they want to get, right now you have a firefighter dispatch, right? They want to get the firefighter off dispatch and either regionalize dispatch or have civilian dispatch, which will give them more firefighters per shift. And apparently the town is open to doing that. They said they're grateful for it. But they're still looking at, right now it's supposed to be 7 firefighters per shift, because if you remember the conversation with Kevin a couple weeks ago, they said there's 4 new recruits hired to the academy. Now I talked about that with the town administrator too, because that's outside of the CBA. So they can talk about that. 4 new recruits hired to the academy, right? And so these new recruits are supposed to bring the staffing levels from 6 per shift to 7 per shift. Now, the IAFF has said optimal staffing levels are 14 firefighters per shift. 14. Now, what they've said is, listen, let's do 9. 9 isn't 14. It's not optimal, but it's manageable, right? It's not entirely untenable like the situation we're in now. And he talked about, he acknowledged that although there are call firefighters who play a very important role, the ones that are, called when an incident happens, and they're an essential part of a municipal firefighting fire department, that the initial attack is the most important because a fire doubles in size every 30 seconds. So you need a well-staffed fire department to send for full-time staff to be there for the initial attack to make sure that the fire doesn't get out of hand. So they want to get to 9. One of the ways that they've proposed to get to 9 is an override of Proposition 2.5. It's an override of Proposition 2.5. Now, they've said, they didn't say this will keep our staffing levels the way they are, because they weren't under the impression that that was the situation. And what they're saying now is the town never communicated that to them. Their understanding was their position in arguing to override Prop 2.5, which they said, by the way, will cost each taxpayer just under $2 per week. What they said was their rationale for overriding 2.5 was to add firefighters. But now what they're saying is the town is using the union's position to trying to leverage the union's position to override Prop 2.5 and not change their staffing levels. What they're saying the town has said now is the town has told them that, hey, those 4 recruits that we just hired in January, well, we're going to have to let go 2 of them if we don't override 2.5. Now, this isn't something that they were told. This isn't something that they were told. This is what they said. This isn't something they were told before. That this was never brought up when they hired these 4 recruits. But now it's being brought up to say these 4 recruits, well, we're going to have to let go 2 of them if you don't override 2.5. Their impression was that Prop 2.5 was to add that couple extra firefighters per shift to be 9 per shift, however many that may be. They said that would be able to do it. It would cost $2, under $2 per person per week, per taxpayer per week. So what they're hearing now is that it's going to be, it's what the ultimatum that they're saying. They accuse the town of threatening to purposefully cut their staff. And they said that the town of Fairhaven is playing politics and using the 4 recruits' livelihoods as a political chip, so a bargaining chip to pass 2.5. They're saying what they're framing the argument is let's get these staffing to a state level, a safer level by passing 2.5. Instead, they're saying, this is what the union said. The town is now saying, no, we need that just to keep the people we already hired. So the union had their statement. Again, you can check out the full statement on WBSM.com. And I will say, it was I think it was today, there was another post by the Fairhaven Fire Union. It says, currently both ambulances are on medical emergencies and Engine 3 is responding for station coverage in New Bedford for their fire. Our chief is also doing a great job on dispatch by himself at the station. Thanks to our mutual aid partners for coming to assist with the other medical emergencies going on and off duty, and on and off duty staff trying to staff the station. Totally doable with firefighters if it were opposite day. So they're saying right now there's 5 firefighters at the station, and all the stuff that they have. It's getting to the point now where you have the Fairhaven Fire Chief, Todd Correa, actually running dispatch, which is incredible. That's not his job. He's not supposed to do that. He's the chief. He's got chief stuff to do. He's the administrator. He's got a whole department to run. And now he's sitting on the dispatch desk. So I think we all agree. I'm a Fairhaven resident. I know a lot of you are who listen are Fairhaven residents as well. There has to be something to improve these staffing levels. Now, I have no reason to not believe the fire union on this situation. Like I said, I've known Kevin my entire life. He's a great guy. But I can't get the other side of the argument in this situation. I cannot hear we can't, at this juncture, I think, hear the full other side of the argument. So I don't want to throw the 5 members of the select board under the bus without having an opportunity to hear that. And I think they're legally restricted in some circumstances of saying some of the things that they'd like to say. And I understand that. But here's the thing. I live in Fairhaven. A lot of you live in Fairhaven. A lot of you live in other towns around Fairhaven and may rely on mutual aid from Fairhaven or New Bedford or other towns, because that's the way fire departments work now. There's a lot of mutual aid, towns helping towns out. We need better staffing. The situations that are being described by the union are horrifying. They're frightening. A lot of you are Fairhaven taxpayers, right? I am. Chris is. Chris McCarthy is as well. And your home, your family. There could be a situation in which you need the fire department needs to be there and ready and fully staffed to protect them, both your home and your family, your pets. And right now, just based on some of the stories we're hearing, it doesn't seem like that's the case. It doesn't seem like the Fairhaven Fire Department has the adequate staffing, and they want the adequate staffing, hasn't had the adequate staffing to do the fundamental service that we in Fairhaven expect them to do. And so this Prop 2.5 override does seem like a necessary way to bring staffing levels to a much more tenable position than they are now. But if this is the accounting of it, if now the town is saying, well, we need Prop 2.5 override just to keep the staffing levels at where they're at or where they might be in a couple months, it's a totally different conversation. They said it's nothing. It hasn't been brought up. It hasn't been brought up till just now with these 4 recruits. And so I think if the town's going to go forward with a 2.5 override, which again, I think is probably necessary, then we're definitely going to need some assurances that this isn't going to be that they're going to better staff the fire department and not can the two of the 4 firefighters that they just brought on. It's a really unfortunate development either way that you look at it. Because again, I've had to throughout my lifetime call the fire department for stuff, when I lived on the neck with my family when I was younger, I was like 12, 13 years old. Our house caught on fire. Dryer caught on fire. We had to live in a hotel for a week. The house ended up being fine, but there was a lot, there was fumes or whatever, they had to figure that out. We live in a hotel over here for a week. But if the fire department wasn't there and ready, we would have lost that home, right? And I'm sure there's a lot of situations like that. And it's not only not safe for us, it's not safe for the fire department, the firefighters. Like Kevin said when he was on with us, we're firefighters. If we show up to a job, we're going to try to do something. We're not going to wait for other people. So one of those fires they talked about, you had a single firefighter making the breach by themselves. It's a haunting picture, and it's something that we need to figure out. And I think what we don't, if we're going to go forward with this tax override, which again, I think is probably necessary, then we have to go forward with the expectation that there will be more firefighters, not keeping the ones that were already hired. There has to be more. 508-996-0500. Let's take a break. Hey, welcome back. Let's go to the phones. Good evening.
Good evening, Marcus.
How are you?
Well, I'm okay. You know, there's an old saying, le plus que change, le plus qu'à même chose. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Fairhaven, and as I told you in Fairhaven, you got to sharpen your pencils, you got to tighten your belts. Although I did admit to you guys the other night that Fairhaven has changed over the years, okay? Yeah. I can remember when Burridon Plaza was, I believe, a farm, okay? And that's all changed.
I was told about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I've lived to see that, I guess, as a passer-through because I'm from New Bedford, okay?
Right.
But I do know a little bit about Fairhaven. And I mentioned, too, the other day about how the neck has changed from when you were a young man, okay, and how it's more, populated, and it's developing even now. So I believe, from what I'm hearing, that, yes, Fairhaven's fire department must grow, okay?
Yeah.
To meet the place that used to be a farm, now a plaza with all kinds of businesses in it. To
exactly.
meet the changes that are going on in Squanicook and down to Wilbur's Point there.
Yeah.
You need to, staff that, and I believe that the union has a point. But again, Fairhaven traditionally has always been an economically conservative town, okay?
Oh, yeah.
And not wanting to. Now, the one question I would have is this. Maybe, was it possible before you went to a Proposition 2.5 override to get a safer grant in there to show maybe if, the policeman came with the additional staff through a safer grant that, yeah, this is a good thing, and yeah, it saved my dog, and yeah, it saved my house, or yeah,
Yeah, I think safer grants are tough. The thing is with safer grants is that they are short-term solutions. Right?
I understand, but if you're going to change something that's been historically conservative for many years, I think you have to kind of, do it by showing that, look, we've hired these people on a safer grant, and look what a great job they've done, and look how much more efficient we are.
I just think it's an easy enough sell to say, well, let's try out having this more firefighters thing. I think it's, yeah. I think people generally, people are generally supportive of public safety and spending for public safety.
Yes, and I think you're right. But again, Fairhaven is an economically conservative town.
Yeah.
Okay. Historically.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think if you're going to, make that change, which I think is needed, and I would agree with the union.
Yeah.
Okay. I think a sort of gradual approach rather than a Proposition 2.5 override. Some people are going to go, oh my, even though you said it would only be $2 it would cost them. I think people have a tough time, especially in that economically conservative town, to buy that.
The problem's going to be, I think that $2 per person per week is an easy sell.
You're a young guy, though.
Yeah, no,
that's the way you feel.
I know.
But yeah. I know an older person might not feel that way.
Yeah.
To me, I would have thought that the safer grant might be a way of demonstrating and showing.
I mean, listen, I think if it's something that can happen, I think that's something they could be it should be open to explore at least while we figure this out. But ultimately, we're talking about the school needs money and all of this.
Oh, everybody needs money. Let's face it. But life is more important than that, and Fairhaven has grown exponentially from when I first, became involved in Fairhaven.
Yeah.
Again, today we just had a massive fire on Acushnet Avenue.
I know.
The rooming house, I think, burned down.
I've heard there were some casualties
as well. So again, it's important that you're staffed properly over there in the town because I think it said on the news that local towns had to be called in for backing.
Mutual aid.
Yeah, mutual aid. Okay.
Yeah.
So again, if you say, well, we can't come because we got a fire that we don't have enough people for, as Chris McCarthy says, as New Bedford goes, so goes the town.
Exactly.
And he's right. We're all hooked up in this. So I know me speaking about this in the old days in Fairhaven, I'd be called a Johnny come lately. Like, you're from New Bedford. Who are you to talk about this?
Right.
So. And I am, but yes.
That was the point I was making.
You guys probably helped us out with low manpower, so of course I'm concerned.
That's the exact point I was, I had made. I was saying you may be a resident of Fairhaven, or you may be somebody in the surrounding towns that relies on Fairhaven's mutual aid, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And so it does. It's honestly, it's unfortunate that mutual aid has to be a thing. That has to be a thing that's practiced.
But
right?
it's good that we have it because.
Oh, I agree.
We have these. Who would have thought there'd be a fire next to St. Anthony's Church today in that rooming house there? And to be
it's really unfortunate.
Like and here we have some more people on this side of the pond that are going to be looking for housing.
Yeah.
And but no, I would probably this is Kevin Gaughan's house. How old is he?
It's my age. We went to. I've known him since elementary. We were in the kindergarten classes of Wood School over here.
Okay.
So he's my age. He's 34.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't think I know him. Yeah. So when you went there, Mr. Burnett was the principal, right?
I was there when Mr. Burnett was the principal.
Okay. Yeah. I know my Fairhaven, I maybe live in New Bedford, but I know my Fairhaven.
Mr. Burnett was usually nice to me.
Yep.
And when he wasn't, it's because I deserved it.
Well, that's the way you should be when you're doing public school work and stuff like that. No, but I agree with the firefighters. I would just they should have, I think, tried that safer grant. They're just to demonstrate to those who might feel differently that, this is a good thing. Save my dog, save my cat, save my house, save my kid, And because we had the proper staffing that we need, and yes, we should keep this. I think going to a Proposition 2.5 override, easy does it. That's what I would say. But you're younger than me, and so you want to get things done right away. I'm kind of like an old guy, but I agree with you guys, though. And from what I know of the town and everything, hope they're successful in getting the override. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I saw an override in Newton get shot down recently, so I'm.
Well, times are tough. Let's face it. You need what you've got because the Fairhaven has changed. It's grown. More businesses in there. More people down the neck. And if I drove around other parts of the town, I'd probably point, hey, you actually got a marijuana clinic or whatever you want to call it before New Bedford did.
Dispensary.
We're going to jump over John Mitchell's hurdles that he puts in front of anything that he doesn't want to have passed.
New Bedford.
That's a major thing for Fairhaven too, because Fairhaven again is a very conservative town.
Yeah.
But again, I think they could be proven that they would make a lot of moolah over that if they got that in there, and so they would let that go.
Yeah,
but
tax revenues. Is huge.
But still, Fairhaven is still, even with the tax revenues, Fairhaven's still a very conservative town. They have a marijuana clinic in our town. Horrors, What would Grandma say? That sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But I always used to get upset with McCarthy before his illness, and he would. To me,
I get upset with McCarthy after his illness.
But when he would brag about how Basque was doing so well, he was basking in the money of Basque. That's the way I thought of it. And I know in New Bedford, where we've got illegal drugs all over the place of great danger, the mayor was holding everything up, putting his hurdles in front as he does all the time. Jump over this hurdle. Now jump over this hurdle. Although I heard the one on Cogswell Street is run very well.
Yeah, it was certainly slow to start way too slow to start for New Bedford.
Well, but that's to me that's me and my way or the highway. But that's beside the point. Go ahead.
No, I agree that they were too slow. On that.
I have a friend that went in there and told me it looked real good and ran real well and everything. And again, that's something I haven't dabbled in since high school, so I wouldn't go in that way.
It's a very strictly regulated
which is fine,
industry,
and maybe that's because of the mayor's efforts, but Jazel Correa got to go in and Fall River pretty quickly. He may have went to jail for it, but he got the revenues, that sort of stuff. It sort of reminds me of a body Cianci. I'll get it done.
You know what? John's on. Mitchell's on tomorrow. I'll ask him if he's willing.
Oh no, I'll be listening.
If he's willing to go to jail for New Bedford's economic growth.
Well, again, when you're just looking for revenues, and in New Bedford, I think you need new sources of revenue, not going back to the homeowner again, the old guy like me who's trying to, pay his taxes, his $400 tax increase, and the biggest that I think I've ever seen since I've owned my house,
Yeah.
And but again, getting back to the original thing with Fairhaven, yes, I think they make a good point. Now, when is this election going to be, or this vote going to be held for the?
There was a select board meeting tonight, so I'm trying to figure it out. They were looking in. They were looking at May. I think that's probably a little bit too.
It'll be in May. Okay. Well,
it's a bit of a. That's like a snap election, so I'm not entirely sure.
Well, Marcus, you've got a lot of time to try to persuade people, but go gently, please.
I'll try.
All right.
Thanks for the call.
To you. Okay,
appreciate it.
Bye bye.
Listen to us live anywhere in the world on the WBSM app. The voices in the night that cover the news of the day.
I heard the voices too.
Chris McCarthy and Marcus Farrow. More of South Coast Tonight happens now on WBSM.
And welcome back to South Coast Tonight. I'm Marcus, 508-996-0500. Tomorrow we have New Bedford Mayor John Mitchell on at 7, joining Chris and me. That'll be fun. Certainly a lot to talk about with Mayor Mitchell. So he'll be on with Tim's in the morning. We usually have a different conversation in the evening. I listen during the day, so I'll find the things that they didn't talk about, and we'll talk about it then. So it'll be a nice long-form interview with New Bedford Mayor John Mitchell. I'm looking forward to having him on. It'll be a lot of fun. So Thursday, I know Erica Morency of the Dartmouth School, one of the Dartmouth School Committee candidates, she's going to be on. Steph Pickup is going to be on Friday, Fairhaven School Committee candidate. So it's going to be quite the. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be quite the school committee race. And, we'll talk to Mayor Mitchell about all the goings on at the city council and all of that and what he thinks about that. And some of the stuff with offshore wind I want to ask him about as well. There's always a lot of things left to be said, even after Tim's interview. So we'll cover all that tomorrow. I got to take one more break. Hey, thanks so much for joining me this evening. It sure was fun. So, thanks to Brian Monroe, Fairhaven School Committee member, Kathleen Amaral, Dartmouth School Committee member. Thanks to Michael Rock, our fearless leader, and our great callers and listeners and our app chatters. You're all the best. Thanks so much. I'll be back tomorrow with Chris and with New Bedford Mayor John Mitchell. We'll be chatting it up in the first hour at 7 o'clock. You're gonna want to tune in. You're gonna want to tune in. It's gonna be good, and we're gonna have some great guests throughout the week as well. So all good stuff. It's gonna be great. Tune in. You're not gonna want to miss it. And tune in tomorrow. You got Tim. Well, you got Phil in the morning. Tim Weisberg, he's got his segment with the mayor, and then we've got ours later. Barry Richard, Howie Carr, and then us. So that's pretty much it. Thanks so much again for joining me. We're gonna talk more about the Prop 2.5. I do want to say Fairhaven Select Board member Leon Corey had said he just got a text from him. He said in the meeting he's not going to support anything that cuts firefighters. So that's good to hear from a member of the select board. We're going to talk more about this issue. It's going to be an ongoing thing. So we're going to talk about it here for a while. This is the time and space for it. So you're going to want to check that out. You're going to want to tune in here to hear more about that. And you can also go to our podcast if you might have missed anything. So it's all up there for your listening pleasure.